Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. It is Matty here from Chill TCG. So today we got a super cool deck list. We're going to be taking a look at the new Dhelmise VMAX from Shining Fates. Now, Dhelmise V was a card that was released in base set. Was a little bit underwhelming at the time. Not a terrible 2-prize grass type attacker here, 220 HP. Anger is that first attack for 1 grass energy, 30 plus 90 if one of your Pokemon was knocked out by damage from your opponent's attack last turn. And then we have Giga Hammer, 200 for 2 grass and a colorless. Can't use Giga Hammer next turn. Wasn't a terrible card. For the most part, didn't see too much play. Definitely wasn't really on anyone's radar for a while. However, in Shining Fates, they were like, you know what, let's give this thing a VMAX card and just kind of turn people on their head. The attack lineup is actually pretty similar. It's honestly just an improved version of Dhelmise V. We have Dhelmise VMAX here. We have 330 HP on this grass-type VMAX Pokemon. Definitely pretty impressive. Like, I'm not going to lie. The HP is nothing to scoff at here. You are weak to fire, but that's not a huge deal. We do have weakness cards still right now in the format. Our retreat cost is 3, so no Air Balloon here. Again, not a huge deal. But it has 2 very cool attacks. So for the first one, we have Swinging Chain. For 1 grass energy, this attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for each grass energy attached to this Pokemon. This means that if we power up this thing with tons of energy, we can actually hit the bench for up to, like 120, 180, or even 210 damage and things like that. So this Pokemon is actually kind of impressive. Just looking at that first attack kind of gives it multiple options when it comes to attacking. And honestly, we don't have too many VMAX Pokemon or really too many like big 3-prize Pokemon with this sort of attack and this ability. And we do have some good ways to accelerate energy to this Pokemon. The second attack here is Max Anchor, 2 grass and a colorless, just like the V Pokemon, except now we do 240 instead of 200. And during your next turn, we cannot use this attack. Again, not a huge deal. 240 is actually one-shotting a lot, if not all V Pokemon right now in the format. We do have some things that resist grass, but you know what? For the most part, Dhelmise VMAX is actually very, very impressive, and the art looks incredible on this card. Just a very cool VMAX Pokemon. Again, it sort of flew under the radar even with, when Shining Fates came out. We had things like Cramorant VMAX, Crobat VMAX, even Ditto VMAX, what was there another one? There wasn't there? What was it? I don't know. I honestly forget already. But either way, a very cool VMAX Pokemon flew under the radar. Not many people are talking about Dhelmise VMAX grass type decks right now. Green is not a really great, has a great position right now in the meta. Being weak to fire, of course, not ideal. However, with a deck like this, we can incorporate weakness guard energies, and overall, we have a pretty unique build in playing Dhelmise VMAX, and this is the list that we're playing. We are, in fact, running Silvally-GX and the Rose engine. This is sort of what we're using to accelerate energies to Dhelmise VMAX. Again, there are things like Rillaboom, right, with the Voltage Bead, I believe it is, where, you get to put 2 energies on this thing per turn. Not bad at all, except, for the most part, I think that, that's what people are going to be playing with Dhelmise, and it makes the deck pretty clunky. Overall, I think that Silvally-GX and Rose is actually a very good way to play Silvally. It means that more often than not, we should be able to get this Max Anchor attack off on our second turn going first. And on our third turn, we might be able to Swinging Chain for, around like 150, 180, things like that to maybe KO something on the bench. The freedom to hit on the bench as well as hit the active for 240, that makes this deck and this card very, very playable in my opinion. Metal type is resisting grass, and fire type is hitting us for double effectiveness, which isn't great right now, and that's sort of why I don't think a lot of people are really looking at Dhelmise VMAX as a very playable card. But I think that the future of the format and overall the Pokemon trading card game in the future, grass type decks are going to be much more viable. I was playing a version where I ran this with, with Rowegg, right? So it was just a Rowegg deck, with Rillaboom and whatnot, except we were teching in these Dhelmise VMAXs as probably one of our significant attacking options in the deck. But for the most part, it kind of seemed like just a normal Rowegg deck, and it wasn't anything too crazy, which is why we are running this new and improved version of the deck list. This deck focuses primarily around Dhelmise VMAX, which is super cool, and it's a very fun deck to play. So we're going to go through this deck list, kind of talk about it just for a little bit here, and kind of give you guys a rundown of what this deck does and really what it's all about. Of course, we are running a 4-3 lineup of Dhelmise V and Dhelmise VMAX. This is the primary card of the deck. This is what we're going to want to be using to attack. But we are running 3 type nulls here and 2 Silvally-GXs. And if you don't know, we run Silvally-GX mainly for its ability Disc Reload. Once during our turn before we attack, we may draw cards until we have 5 cards in our hand. This goes very well with Rose because Rose This means that, this card reads that we get to attach up to 2 basic energy cards from our discard pile to one of our VMAX Pokemon. I mean, if we attach any energies this way, we discard our hand. So now, with this sort of deck, we get to sort of play a little bit fast, maybe discard some grass energies early in the game. We get to play Rose, attach 2 onto Dhelmise, attach 1 manually. That's 3 energies in 1 turn onto Dhelmise VMAX. And then we get to draw back up to 5 cards in hand with Silvally-GX. So it's actually pretty cool. It synergizes very well. Getting this 240 attack off on turn 2 is absolutely busted sometimes. In turn 3, hitting the bench for 180 is also incredibly busted. So, I think that this way to play Dhelmise VMAX is definitely super cool. And it's also very, very fun. So we are running a 3-2 lineup of Silvally, a 4-3 lineup of Dhelmise. That is the bulk of this deck. In fact, though, we are running some support Pokemon. We do have 1 Crobat V in here, 1 Eldegoss V, and 2 Dedenne-GX. This is sort of, a good way to give this deck a little bit more of a fast pace. Again, the Rose engine, you do sometimes have to dig for those roses. It's not something that we can necessarily just always find. But you know what? We have Eldegoss to pull it out of our discard pile. We have Dedenne. We have Crobat to dig for it. Dedenne is actually very good, as well as because we can discard those grass energies and get them back with Rose. And we also have an Ordinary Rod to get the cards back and our Pokemon out of our discard pile as well for the late game. And we are running a Mew from, this is, I think, from Unbroken Bonds, but it's the promo version. Either way, it's the one with Bench Barrier. Prevent all damage done to your bench Pokemon by your opponent's attacks. This keeps Dhelmise VMAX as well as our Silvally-GX kind of safe down there on the bench. Our Eldegoss, Dedennes, Crobats. We don't want them getting hit with Cramorant. We don't want to get tag bolted for multiple prize cards. Again, this deck kind of likes to creep into the late game without really getting rushed down by things like, like Welder decks or Pikarom, things like that. But you know what? 240 is a good number. We are one-hit KOing Pikarom. And with Swinging Chain, we can actually hit that bench on our second turn there if our opponent has a slow start, and kind of fix the math, right? So if we hit the bench for 30 or 60 plus the 240, that's usually enough to KO any tag team that could be sitting down on the bench or even reach for a VMAX Pokemon later in the game. So Dhelmise VMAX is super cool. The math works out a lot. And the Mew is important to kind of keep our bench Pokemon safe. Dhelmise VMAX has a lot of HP, so we're living at least 1 hit for the most part. We don't want them to hit this thing on our bench and then come up and bring it up and KO it, right? So we are running a Mew for that fact. Now onto the trainer cards. We are running Ordinary Rod. This is because we're only running 9 grass energies. But in total, there's a lot of Pokemon that we might want to get back out of our discard pile, like if our Silvally gets knocked out or if it gets discarded in any way throughout the game. So it does make a lot of sense, I think, to run at least 1 Ordinary Rod just to make sure that we can kind of survive going into the late game. We have 4 Pokemon Communications. This primarily is because we're not running any way to really search out our evolution Pokemon other than this card, right? So we have 2 Silvally-GX and we have 3 VMAX Pokemon. We cannot find these Pokemon with Quick Ball, right? We can find all of our other Pokemon with Quick Ball, but we do have a total of 5 evolution Pokemon, and that's why we have Pokemon Communication to search out those Silvally-GXs and the Dhelmise VMAXs, because they are primarily the most important cards in our deck. We want to get them consistently. We are running 4 Quick Balls on top of that, because a lot of our cards are basics. We can find our Dhelmise Vs, find our Type Nulls, find our Dedennes, Crobats, Eldegoss, whatever it might be. So we're running a 4-4 lineup between Pokemon Communications and Quick Ball. Next up, we are running 2 Reset Stamp. That is because this deck really likes to come back in the late game with a powered up Dhelmise and really start putting a lot of pressure on our opponent. If we, start slapping things with Dhelmise VMAX with 4 or 5 energies onto it, we stamp our opponent down to 2 or 3 prize cards. We really have the advantage moving into that late game. So 2 Reset Stamp, incredibly, incredibly important for this deck, in my opinion. We are running 4 Switch cards. That's because things like Air Balloon, which we are running 2 of, don't work with Dhelmise VMAX. They work with, everything else in our deck. But a lot of times we want to switch between one Dhelmise VMAX and another if we're about to get KO'd. So you know what, 4 Switch cards, definitely very good. It also kind of gives us some flexibility to move in and out of our Dhelmise VMAX, just because overall it's our only real attacker of the deck, and we might get stuck with any of these other Pokemon in our active spots. We are running 2 Air Balloons as well as 4 Switch cards. For our Stadium, we are running just Turffield Stadium. It's our best way to find our Dhelmise VMAX on top of our Pokemon Communications. And of course, Dhelmise VMAX is extraordinarily important, right? So I think that this is the best Stadium that we could be running. I do think that Viridian's Force could be very, very good because we can also discard a grass energy to find another one. And getting those grass energies in our discard pile is very important. However, we do have other ways to discard cards in our hand and discard those energies in our hand. Things like Dedenne, Research, Quick Ball, all of those other things are good for discarding cards. And for that reason, I think that Turffield Stadium is probably the best when it comes to consistency for this deck, for sure. We're running 3 Boss's Orders. This is because we can't hit the bench for a decent amount, maybe knock out those Dedennes, Crobats, things like that. But in terms of tag team Pokemon and V Pokemon, a lot of times we're going to have to use that max anchor attack to get the KO, which is why we are running Boss. We can boss up those things and get some nice one-hit KOs with that max anchor attack. 240, again, a very good number. A very good number for sure. It's also one of those things where if we hit with max anchor, we're pretty much always two-shotting any deck right now or any card right now. In the format, so they might get afraid, they might retreat down to the bench, but we have Swinging Chain to chase them down. So, even if we hit them for 240, they retreat out, we have 3 or 4 energies on our Dhelmise, we can just Swinging Chain, hit them down on the bench, and most likely get the KO on anything right now in the format, right? So that's something to keep in mind. They cannot retreat away from Dhelmise VMAX, and a lot of times Boss's Orders isn't necessarily needed, but it can be very needed at some point throughout the game. We are running 4 Professor's Researches. This is, again, just, for those turns where we don't have Rose. We have no way of getting Rose. We're just going to research away our hand, maybe discard an energy or 2, and keep this deck moving at a decent pace, because a deck like this, oftentimes could be a little bit slower pace. It's also one of those things where, Silvally-GX is just really good, so sometimes we play all the cards in our hand, we go down to 1 or 2 cards, we can Silvally-GX, draw 2 or 3, and then play those cards and just sort of end our turn with a Rose or a Research, which is typically what we want to do. Research, definitely very good. And of course, we have the star of the show, we have Rose. It's a card that doesn't really see a whole lot of play, to be 100% honest with you, but I think it's perfect for a deck like Dhelmise VMAX. I don't necessarily think that running the Rillaboom engine is a bad idea, right? I think that Rillaboom is a completely fine card when it comes to energy acceleration for grass-type Pokemon, but for the most part, I think that Silvally-GX and Rose is something that's unique, and something that brings Dhelmise VMAX, it fits well with Dhelmise VMAX and also kind of gives it a different face as opposed to some of these other just basic sort of grass-type decks that are using the Rillaboom engine or maybe Rowegg to go along with the Rillaboom. So something a little bit different here, the Rose engine. It's definitely super, super good. The math works out. You get the 3 energies on Dhelmise pretty consistently by attaching and playing Rose. That's 3 exactly, and then we can just Silvally-GX back up to 5 cards in our hand. The combo is actually kind of nasty. When it works, and it's definitely super cool. Like I said, we are running 2 Air Balloons just because all of our Pokemon except for Dhelmise VMAX have a retreat cost of 2. So, again, it's just a really reliable switching option. And like I said, Max Anchor, we cannot attack with it twice in a row. But, this is similar to Zacian. Once we use this attack, we can play a switch card and then attach an Air Balloon to any of these Pokemon and just for free retreat back into Dhelmise. And we can use that Max Anchor attack multiple times in a row back to back. So Air Balloon kind of gives or creates a pivot in all of these other Pokemon that we might have on our board. Things like Silvally, Eldegoss, Crobat, all that good stuff. It creates a pivot, and if we have a switch card in hand, as well as a Pokemon with Air Balloon, that means that we can pretty much use Max Anchor over and over again, which is definitely very, very important. Now, one thing to note, we are running Telescopic Sight because Dhelmise VMAX, does hit the bench. It allows to do bench damage. 330 HP is enough where, for the most part, we don't really need to attach Big Charm to this thing. Nothing's really going to KO us. Air Balloon, of course, doesn't give us free retreat, so for the most part, we're going to want to be putting these Telescopic Sights on our Dhelmise VMAXs. This, of course, is going to be adding 30 damage when we hit our opponent's benched V or GX Pokemon. And just a little math, if we do have 3 energy onto Dhelmise VMAX, that's 90 damage, technically, with Swinging Chain. To any of our Pokemon, or our opponent's Pokemon on the bench or in the active spot, you do have the option, which is nice. But with Telescopic Sight, that adds 30. That brings you up to 120. If you have 4 energies on, that's 120. Brings you up to 150 and so forth. Can really help with the math and really boosts the damage on this thing. And like I said, it can really guarantee that we're going to be two-hit KOing anything in the game, no matter where they are on our board state, our opponent's board state, right? So definitely very good. Goes very well with Dhelmise VMAX. It's kind of cool to think of Dhelmise as a sniping card, but it honestly works as both ways. And it makes the deck, makes this card in this deck honestly pretty flexible. And then for the energy count, we are running 9 basic grass energies. For the most part, like I said, we're not really needing too many grass energies. It's nice to get 5 or 6 on one Dhelmise, but for the most part, we're probably just going to want to be splitting 4 or 5 between 2 Dhelmise VMAXs. We don't really want to attach to anything else. 9 energies seems completely fine to me. And with Rose, we can discard those grass energies that we have and just attach out of our discard pile. And we are running Ordinary Rod for the late game to get those energies back, potentially set up a second Dhelmise VMAX with a ton of energy. So definitely important. We are running 2 weakness cards as well because, again, we are weak to grass, and Dhelmise does have a colorless energy in its attack cost. So just kind of makes sense, kind of like Orbeetle, where we have a grass and a colorless. If you're a grass type Pokemon and you have a colorless energy in your attack cost, I highly suggest that you run weakness guard energy. It's just going to work out for you in the long run, and you're going to be very happy that you are running weakness guard. There are a lot of welder decks out there, and this one card is primarily the reason that you're going to be able to win those matchups. They do run Giratina, I'm not going to lie, but for the most part, you're going to want to tech for it. It's just better than not teching for it, you know what I mean? So that's the deck list, guys. I apologize, we're not going to be able to do any gameplay today. I'm super busy today with college coursework, getting things ready, applying for jobs now that I am graduating college here soon. But yeah, no gameplay, but I do suggest that you guys go build this deck. If you have the cards, maybe trade up for some of these cards and run the deck on the ladder, test it out a little bit. Maybe in the future in a live stream we'll play some games with it. We'll play with some of these new cards, new decks, and show you guys what it's all about. But for now, this is just a basic deck list, little deck preview, little overview of Rose Dhelmise with Silvally-GX. I call it Rose Mise because I'm so good at naming decks. Yeah, that's going to wrap it up, guys. Just a quick one today. I hope you guys enjoyed the deck list. Export will be down in the description below if you're interested in just copying and pasting this into PTCGO instead of just having to build it out yourself. So that's going to be down in the description below. Before we go, I want to let you guys know that Chill Series number 21 is coming on Wednesday. It's our first tournament of the new season of Season 3. It's an incredible tournament. It's going to be just an awesome tournament with a great turnout. We have over 80 people registered already for the tournament coming up on Wednesday. It's 100% free to play, and we also do have 200 Shining Fates PTCGO packs in our prize pool. So if you're looking to get some of these new cards, maybe you're looking to build Dhelmise VMAX, who knows? You have access and you have the ability to get some Shining Fates packs. By performing pretty well in this tournament coming up. So it's definitely a good opportunity. Definitely go check it out. Link to register for that will be down in the description below as well. As always, big shout out to our channel members. You guys are the reasons that we're still able to make this content and build these cool deck lists. So big shout out to all of you. Go check out Card Cavern Trading Cards. They are our sponsor. You can use the code CHILLTCG for 5% off your entire order. Link for that will be down in the description below. That's going to be it. I've been talking for too long already. Sorry, no gameplay today. Sorry about that. But like the video if you like the video, subscribe. We're going to get out of here. Shout out to Dhelmise VMAX. Peace out.